Good morning, everyone. Today is March 31st, 2025, and this is your Muckboots in the Capitol weekly update with Friends of Family Farmers on progress in the Oregon State Legislature for small farm policy. As always, my name is Alice Morrison. I am the co-executive director of Friends of Family Farmers, and I am in charge of our policy program and advocacy work. So I will be presenting to you today on the updates that we have for you. And also just a reminder that these presentations are recorded and you can check out weekly updates for every week of the session so far on our YouTube channel as well. Today, we're going to start off with updates on FOF's priority areas. We are going to talk about hearings that happened last week, hearings that are happening this week, and then we will talk about looking ahead. So first, our two priority areas. Again, we're going to say it every week until something changes, but the State Meat Inspection Bill, HB 2164, which would give 2 FTE phased in over the next biennium to the Oregon Department of Agriculture for state meat inspectors for the State Meat Inspection Program. That bill passed out of its first chamber committee very early in the session, lots of good support there. It is still in Ways and Means, and we will be shifting toward more Ways and Means and budget-related advocacy after the first chamber deadline. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But there are some opportunities to speak up on this topic. The Ways and Means Roadshow is underway. So Ways and Means is a joint committee. So it's both senators and representatives coming together, and they talk about everything that is related to state funds. They are the ones who balance the budget and will do the giant budget reconciliation bill at the end of session, in addition to passing agency budgets through that process. And this Ways and Means Roadshow is, there's not always hearings on bills in Ways and Means subcommittees. So the Ways and Means Roadshow is a way to gather public input on funding priorities. And it's one of many ways, but one of the most visible. And it has been underway. 2 of the dates have already happened. So I believe Gresham and I forget which one was last week, but there's one coming up on Friday in Warm Springs, then in La Grande on the 11th. The statewide virtual testimony option is on the 16th, and then they're rounding it out with Klamath Falls on the 25th. So if you are in one of these communities or close to one of those communities and would like to go represent small farm budget priorities, these Ways and Means roadshows are meant to prioritize members of the public. So for example, if I showed up and tried to speak at one of these, I would not be called on because they know that I am an advocate and that I already have access to committee members via my work in Salem. But this is meant to prioritize members of the public. I will also say that these are very, very popular events, and you will get folks with all kinds of concerns from all over the budget world. So it'll be education, human services, healthcare, like food security, all kinds of different budget priorities, because everybody goes to these one events. So there is no guarantee that you'll be able to speak, but being present is a signaler to the Ways and Means Committee. So if you are interested in going to one of these, please reach out to myself or Brittany Deming via Alice at friendsoffamilyfarmers.org or Brittany at friendsoffamilyfarmers.org, and we can give you some more information and help you prepare for one of these roadshows. All right. So our second priority area for FOF is small farm water access and discussing our efforts to allow commercial gardens within domestic well exemptions. So we have a hearing scheduled for our vehicle. I know you all have been with us through the session. We started out in the Senate. Now we're in the House. Our vehicle is HB 3372. We have our hearing scheduled April 7th at 8 a.m. in the House Agriculture, Land Use, Natural Resources, and Water Committee. And that our sponsor for HB 3372 is one of the co-chairs of this committee, and they are giving us the opportunity to speak. We do not have a lot of time. We are the only public hearing that day, but there are about 20 work sessions that are also on the agenda. And since we're right up against that first chamber deadline, they are going to want to chug through those work sessions. So we are being given very limited time for in-person or oral testimony. So we have been coordinating with some advocacy partners who represent kind of the spectrum of organizations and stakeholders who are in favor of this change. So we have big thank you to Water League, the State Grange Plug, which is a permaculture and water retention group in originating in Yamhill County, but serving people outside that area also. And the Oregon Farmers Market Association are joining our advocate panel with me. And then we have 4 farmers from around the state. We've got someone from Washington County, Lane County, Jackson County, and Harney County who are going to be speaking on this issue. And some of them are on the call here today. Hello. But thank you all so much for coordinating with us. And the best possible way for you to get involved, if you care about this issue, oh, come on, is to submit written testimony. We really need to build a very strong written record. And that record, when you submit written testimony, it attaches to that bill and it will follow it throughout its life in the legislature. And we want to have 200 pieces of testimony on the record by April 7th. You're going to be hearing from us a lot this week. We have templates up on our website. We already have 30 people who've submitted their testimony. Thank you so much. There are 30 supportive testimonies. There are a couple of oppositional testimonies, but I read them this morning. And all they say is, I don't want more restrictions on my well because the amendment language has not been posted yet. So those folks are not actually opposed to our concept and what we know to be in the amendment when it drops. So that's very promising. And we really encourage folks to submit written testimony and to do so before the hearing. Technically, the deadline is up to 48 hours after the hearing, but the more we can get on the record before the hearing, the better, because it will really emphasize to the co-chairs that the community is excited and watching. And also, we really encourage non-farmers to testify on this bill. I know a lot of times we're like, oh, like farmers are the right messengers. And we do believe, and everyone should be standing up for their ability to produce food. But we also really need to show a strong community support outside the folks who are the ones using these commercial gardens. But the folks who rely on those small growers at their farmers markets, the folks who want to be able to purchase food from their neighbors, the people who see the value in this, who are not necessarily doing it themselves, that is a voice that we also really need in this conversation. So yes, we want everyone who receives this message, any of the myriad emails we will be sending this week, and anyone in your network. If you're listening to this and this is an issue that's important to you and you think people in your network would like to hear about it, every person who believes in this should submit testimony if they are willing and able. We want as many voices as possible in this conversation. So I said all of those things about the hearing, but as I also said, the amendment has not been posted yet. We've been seeing some because of the first chamber deadline coming up on the 9th, we've been seeing some really severe lags from the Legislative Counsel office getting amendments back to folks. And although our lobbyist, Heather, thanks Heather, has been going to our sponsor's office every day for the past month to check in on this amendment, there was a problem. It was supposed to be done last week, and then there was a problem with one of the definitions, and we had to send it back to the lawyers. And so the amendment has not been posted yet, but we will make sure everybody has access to that official text once it is posted. But what we have been told, the solution, and what we are supporting based on what we've been told by our sponsor and what we know to be true about what he sent to Legislative Counsel, his sponsor has not posted the amendment to OLIS, but we are anticipating a half-acre commercial garden, so with an allowance with a gallon cap associated with it. And this will be without requirements for registration or metering at this time. And this allowance would be within current exemptions, so within that half acre and within the 5,000 gallon commercial exemption. You can find more details on our in the testimony template. This is what we are supporting, is a solution that allows people to just go right away. And if in the future we have to come back to this issue, this is the thing that will solve the problem the fastest. We will not have to go to Ways and Means. And this will allow people to use existing exemptions just for a commercial garden instead of a personal garden. We're not, there's no stackable new exemptions. We're not increasing people's ability to use water. We're just allowing folks to use the current exemptions for commercial gardens if they choose. All right. So you can check out testimony templates and instructions on our website. We have a page on our website, friendsofamilyfarmers.org/small-farm-water-access. And this page, you can bookmark this page. This is our campaign page for this issue. And that's where we've been putting all of the updates. If you go in there, you'll see like the top items with the testimony template and the hearing information. And then you can also see dated updates from all the things that we've been doing since the session started and before, to, move this issue along, to inform legislators and communities of what the possibilities here are. So I would highly encourage you to bookmark this page on our website. That URL is never going to change. We're just going to keep that page updated with whatever is coming next. So check out our testimony templates and instructions there. And I really hope that you are able to submit testimony before the hearing on Monday, April 7th at 8 a.m. And thank you all so much for bearing with us through this very long and arduous journey. But I will say that we could not have gotten to this point without the consistent and concerted effort of our group, of our farmers and the community members who support them. This is an issue that was identified to us way back in 2023. And we've known about this issue for longer, but it became clear that this was a real problem and that things were changing in the fall of 2023. So it has been a very long road, and getting this hearing is an accomplishment in and of itself, but we are very, very focused on pushing forward and making change this session. This is the best chance that we've had in a very long time. So thank you all for your patience. And we're not there yet, but we have made a lot of progress, so we can be proud of that. Okay, so last week there were some hearings that we care about. Last week, the week of March 24th, there were 2 hearings that we care about. Well, there were 3, but I didn't put one on the slide. We had SB 611, the Food for All Oregonians bill. We are a member of this campaign. This is a bill to expand the Food for All to create the Food for All Oregonians program and provide state-funded food assistance to folks who would be eligible for SNAP, but for their immigration status, because right now only U.S. citizens and citizens of certain countries who have certain diplomatic agreements with the U.S. are eligible for SNAP. And SB 611 would create a program for youth and seniors who fall into all of the eligibility categories except for their immigration status. So this is anybody who is here on any kind of immigration, any kind of visa, any kind of anything that is not being a U.S. citizen. And there was a hearing in Senate Human Services Committee on the 25th. There will be a work session for this bill tomorrow at 8 a.m. in that committee, and we will know if it is moving forward after that. Then there were 2 budget hearings related to farm to school last week. I wanted to put the Department of Education budget hearing up on the screen because the farm to school program is experiencing a lot of turmoil and uncertainty and cuts at the federal level. And so it is really important that Oregon steps up to support this incredibly important, successful, and time-tested program. The Farm to School program is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It creates opportunities for small farms. It creates an opportunity to scale up to institutional markets. It creates security for nutritious and locally produced food in our school system. It exposes our children to the agricultural production of our state, helps them understand what it takes to produce the food that they eat every day, and helps connect them to agriculture here in Oregon, teaching them about seasonality, teaching them about agriculture. Very, very important program. There was a hearing on the Department of Education budget, and there was a hearing on the Department of Agriculture budget last week, but I have SB 5515 is the ODE budget bill. And we have been taking the lead of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network folks, and Melina Barker, who is leading the charge over there, who put together not only support for the current service level in the bill, but also requesting an additional allocation in that budget to meet the current demand that they see and to make the program as successful as possible, especially given federal uncertainty. So that one happened last week. There were a lot of folks who submitted testimony. Thank you to everyone who stepped up there, and we'll report back on more when we know more. The Department of Ag budget was also heard last week, and we submitted some testimony in support of the Farm to School Infrastructure and Equipment Grant Program. That is a component of the Farm to School program that used to live at the Department of Education, but it's a farmer-facing grant program. And so in 2023, they shifted that over to the Department of Agriculture just for administrative reasons, and because the Department of Ag is more well-equipped to push out money to farmers than the Department of Education, because farmers and the Department of Education don't interact that much. So that is a separate program that allows folks to apply for grant funds to scale up their processing capacity to meet the demands of an institutional market. Like if you are a farm and you've only ever sold direct to consumer from your farm stand or at farmers markets, you might not have the processing capacity to meet large wholesale orders that are like the ones that are needed to go into an institutional market like farm to school. So this equipment and infrastructure grant is used for things like increased storage or refrigeration capacity, better wash and pack services or equipment to make sure you're meeting FSMA standards, to increase your ability to package your food in a way that is accessible to these institutional markets, all of those kinds of things. It's a unique program and is really, really cool. And that program requested it was funded at $500,000 in the last biennium, but received like 10 times that amount in grant requests. And it's become a very competitive program because it is underfunded. And so we joined the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network in requesting that program be funded at $1 million. It has been in previous bienniums and was reduced to $500,000 in the last biennium. So we've requested that we go back to that previous level because there is the demand, and that investment will pan out many times over in additional access to local food for children in the school systems, as well as opportunities for farmers to scale up their small and mid-sized businesses. Okay, so that's what happened last week. Thank you to all of the advocates who stood up for those bills. We will keep you posted on how they are going in the long run. And then we have hearings coming up this week. So we have two hearings happening this week, the week of March 31st, and they are both happening on Thursday, April 3rd. So in the Senate Natural Resources Committee, they will be hearing SB 80 and SB 1154. These are both related to groundwater management areas. And so Friends of Family Farmers has always been, since our founding in 2005, we have been a voice of agricultural producers who don't want our industry to continue to be associated with bad actors who are not treating the environment, their people, their animals, all of those things poorly. So we want to make sure that we are holding our own industry accountable and making sure that scale appropriate agriculture is applied at every turn. And the fact of the matter is that in sensitive groundwater areas, like for example, the lower Umatilla Basin groundwater management area, in which some of these bills are direct results of that contamination, that nitrate contamination has been present for decades and is getting worse because of industrial animal agriculture in that region. That region is home to the largest confined animal feeding operation in the state, which has tens of thousands of cows on its permit. And that also leads to land application of a staggering amount of manure that is not being agronomically applied. Like, I don't mean that, but to say that anyone is being incompetent or not doing their job correctly, it's just that the way that it is being applied is leading directly to groundwater contamination. And that is very well documented by DEQ and the EPA. And there are the state of emergency that was declared there identifies that as a source. So it's very well documented that this type of large scale industrialized agriculture is not appropriate for areas that have sensitive groundwater systems and that are already facing contamination problems. So SB 80 would straight up say you cannot get that DEQ's portion of the CAFO permitting process at ODA would not allow you to get a permit for a large tier 1 or tier 2 CAFO in a groundwater management area, because those systems are simply too sensitive to withstand that scale of industrialized production. So when we say large tier 2, it's very explicit in the bill language that it is only these permit tiers. And so it's people with or farms with more than 700 dairy cows, and that's on site at a given time, not like cycling through over the course of a year. 30,000 chickens, 10,000 sheep. I believe it's 2,500 swine. I can send out the fee table if people are interested. But these are the largest tier of general and individual permitting. So it's also in 2023, there was a law that was passed to say that you need an individual permit to have a large CAFO in a groundwater management area, but it's still allowed for people to apply for those permits. And ODA has told us many, many times that if you fulfill all of the criteria, they cannot deny a permit. So we want to give them the ability to deny a permit because it's not compatible with the groundwater crises in areas that are designated groundwater management areas. SB 1154 is the governor's groundwater management area management bill. So it's changing some of the rules and requiring some stricter identification and remediation of sources of pollution in groundwater management areas. And so that's not just applying to agriculture. That's agriculture, industry, also residential sources. If somebody is doing something in their residential water use or chemical application that's contributing to the contamination in the groundwater management area, that just says like, hey, we have to take this seriously and there need to be changes made. And so we are supportive of both of these bills. There will be a rally and a get together where a lot of the folks from Oregon Rural Action, the community group that's been organizing in Northeast Oregon, where this contamination has been the most pronounced and where that just that emergency declaration is active. They're coming to the Capitol on the 3rd. And so if you would like more information about that, I think we can put a link in the chat to more info on that rally and the testimony opportunity that's there as well. So that's what's happening this week. Okay, looking ahead. I know we kind of talked about this last week, but for those of you who didn't join us for our update last Monday, we've passed one and we are approaching a second first chamber deadline. So not this past Friday, but the Friday before was the scheduling deadline. So in order for a bill to remain alive, it needs to be scheduled for a hearing and work session, or it could have already had its hearing, but it must be scheduled for a work session by March 21st. So if you're looking at a bill on OLIS, the Oregon Legislative Information System, if you're looking on that website right now and there's a bill you're interested in, but you go to scheduled events and there's nothing listed, unfortunately, the deadline has passed and that bill is not going to be moving forward. That bill is already dead if it does not have a work session scheduled at this time. It had to be on the calendar by March 21st. And so then the second part of that deadline is that it had to be scheduled by March 21st and it needs to be complete by the end of the day on April 9th. So that's why we're a little nervous about our water bill, because our hearing is scheduled on the 7th and our work session is scheduled on April 9th. And so the work session has to be completed, and that vote must be taken by the end of the day on April 9th. There is no continuing, there's no shifting it to another day. That is the deadline. And if it's not met, that bill is dead. So, I mean, there can be a couple of different results from that work session. It can, of course, the thing we all hope for is that it is voted out of committee, and that they call for a vote, the vote passes, and it's sent to that chamber floor for a vote, or sent to Ways and Means if it has a price tag associated with it. But the other option during that work session is that it could be referred to one of the two committees in each the House and the Senate that do not adhere to these deadlines. So there are two committees, the House and Senate Rules Committees and the Revenue Committee. So the Revenue and Rules Committees do not have to follow these same deadlines. And so that is another way that the bill could stay alive if the committee doesn't reach a decision on whether or not they are in favor or opposed on the bill, if they or if the chairs don't want the bill to die, but they don't know if they are ready for the committee vote. Like maybe there needs to be a further amendment, maybe we need to keep the conversation going, then it could be referred. This bill, our bill, the water bill, would be referred to rules because it is not a revenue generating bill, so it wouldn't be allowed to be referred to revenue. But it could be referred to rules, and the conversation could keep going. We could have another hearing, and then there could be another amendment. There could be more discussion if it's referred to rules. But if that work session does not occur by April 9th, the bill is gone. It is dead. It's not moving forward. So we are on the edge here, which is why this hearing is so important and why we're encouraging absolutely everyone who cares about this issue to submit written testimony. So again, April 7th, 8 a.m., our hearing for Foss Domestic Well Commercial Garden Bill. Please, 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 please submit written testimony before the hearing. You technically have 48 hours after the hearing to submit it, but we really want to emphasize that our priority deadline is by 8 a.m. on the 7th so that we can point to it during the hearing and say, look, 200 people took the time to write you all a letter and saying why this is important to them personally, to their community, and to the food system that they participate in, whether that's being a farmer or being a customer. Everyone participates in a food system in some way, shape, or form. So please do submit your written testimony before 8 a.m. on Monday, April 7th. And yeah, we're doing it. Okay, so after this first chamber scramble, then we are going to shift our conversation, and you'll see this in these meetings, that we would shift our conversation to developing a Friends of Family Farmers budget letter that we will then go talk to our Ways and Means subcommittee folks about and say, hey, if you want to invest in a strong community food system, if you think that this is worthwhile, and these are the things that you should prioritize funding to make sure that this can continue here in Oregon. So that's where we'll be making the case for investing in small farms and community food systems. And we'll be talking a lot more about the budget process after this first chamber deadline. But of course, we will still have to talk about the second chamber deadline, because the whole point of the solution that our sponsor is moving forward for the commercial garden bill is that it's not going to Ways and Means. So we will have to discuss second chamber deadlines, because every bill, it starts, whether, depending on who introduces it, if a senator introduces it, it starts in the Senate. If a House member introduces it, it starts in the House. And it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but you get the picture. Then once it goes through its first committee, it goes to the other chamber. It has to pass a floor vote in that first chamber, and then it goes to the other chamber, to another policy committee. So our bill in the House would probably go over, we don't know this for sure, but it could go to the House or the Senate Natural Resources Committee, because that's where a lot of the agriculture type bills end up. Um, and so we'd have to go through the whole process again with another set of deadlines. For that second chamber, we'd have our public hearing and our work session and discussion and all of that. So yeah, we are about to come to the first big set of deadlines for the legislative session, but there's a whole second half of the process after that. All right, so that's all I have for you. We're going to stop the recording.